Hi everyone, it's Philip here. Several years after the 2008 global financial crisis, respected American financial journalist Michael Lewis wrote a book called The Big Short, all about how on earth did that thing happen. He was really wondering how really intelligent people could allow it to happen, how systems put in place to prevent such things from happening failed. What led to the global financial crisis? He called it The Big Short because his focus was on those few people who saw through the lies, who could see what was going to happen and bet on it failing. And through that process, in fact, tried to arrest the slide and tried to bring to the watchdog agencies' attention the fact that things were horribly wrong and failed to do so and were not heard. Shorting is a trading term, kind of relates to this idea that in most cases when you're trading or go to the stock exchange, you are looking for companies that are strong. You're looking for companies to invest in that will grow stronger, so that your dollar, if let's say a share costs $1, you buy 10 and the share price doubles in price, then your money is your 10 shares are now worth not just $10, they're worth $20. So you've doubled your money. Most people are trading like that. The rare individuals, and often the more astute among the traders, are looking for companies that are likely to fall over. They're likely to come up short. And the big short, or a short, to trade in shorts, is to trade in the idea of a business falling over and to profit from that business failing. Now, it seems a little bit kind of cutthroat, if you like, but in some ways you kind of need people like that in an environment like trading, where because there's so much emphasis on looking for companies that are going to do well, and because businesses have so much invested and so much riding on the confidence of their investors and traders so that they continue to get money coming in, because if money keeps coming in, that will probably shore them up for a little bit longer if they are a bit weak. But if as soon as there's blood in the water and a business is seen that maybe it'll fall over, then it's almost guaranteed that it will, because once confidence is gone, people will pull their money. They won't want to lose their money. They'll want to be first out, and then a company will completely implode. So there's a lot riding on the whole system supporting the idea that businesses are doing perhaps better than they are even. There's a lot of pressure all around the system to make things look good and to keep confidence up. Confidence is a huge thing in the economy, far more than we probably give real sort of relevance to or think of enough. Anyway, so there's these few people whom we probably need, who are sniffing around going, I don't know if this business really has the guts that it says it has. I don't know if it's really built on the foundation that it's presenting to the rest of the world. And if they really believe that, then they'll short against it and they'll bet on it failing. So the big short is, of course, those few people who saw this whole global financial crisis coming and bet against it failing. And they make really interesting stories. And I've not read his book. It was a good enough book, though, to be turned into a movie, and the movie is available on Netflix, so I've watched it a couple of times there. It's a bit rough around the edges as far as language is concerned, but if you're really wanting to get your head around how the system fell apart and what really led to the global financial crisis, I highly recommend it on that basis, because the way that it's described, the various metaphors they use to try and help you understand some of these quite esoteric technical things, and it's what's very clear through it is there's a lot of throwing smoke out there to confuse, a lot of playing with language to deceive and to confuse and to pull the wool over your eyes. So sort of a bright spotlight of supposedly very intelligent people telling you that this is a surefire thing, so that you can't really see the details and you can't really see that there's a dark shadow behind that very bright light. It does a very good job of trying to explain really how that all happened, and how it is that very intelligent people were duped, or perhaps were willingly duped, and that might be more the case in some situations. One of the scenes in it, this group of people who have seen through it and are trying to do the right thing, they could see that while they're going to short on it, or at least invest on it on a big short here, they are aware that if this thing is real, and they are horrified that they might be right, because what it means is trillions of dollars lost, many hundreds of thousands of people losing homes and businesses and jobs. It's going to result in a huge amount of misery, and they're not interested in that misery. Sure, they want to make money, but they don't want to make money at the price of a global financial crisis. So they've gone to a ratings agency. So the ratings agency's job is to receive these products from the banks, right? So various groups can come up with things that are worth trading on. And I won't go into this too much, but they say, hey, we think this is worth calling others to invest in, and we want to put it onto the market. And we want your rating agency to tell the rest of the world what a wonderful product this is, so that they have confidence in investing in it, right? Confidence is such a big deal. And these rating agencies, you might have heard of AAA rating or AA rating and so on. And nations get rated. Our government gets rated as far as its financial stability. And these rating agencies therefore play a huge role in this whole thing. And you'd expect them to do a job to teach us and tell us whether this product or that product is worth investing in. Well, it turns out it's not that clear cut, or it's not that easy. The woman that they're speaking to, they press and they press and they press and say, look, by now we would have expected to have seen the economy beginning to crack and crumble. We would have expected to hear signs that things weren't as rosy as they appear to be. Why aren't we seeing that? Why aren't you, the rating agencies, telling the rest of us that these things are a bit dodgy? What's going on? Why are you giving them such high ratings? Well, the whole thing boiled down to this one simple economic reality, that if they don't give a good rating to the banks who are demanding it, then those banks will simply go down the road to the next rating agency and get it from them. So the whole thing built around this: we need our jobs, we need their business, and they need us to give them the rating in order for their business to keep going. The whole thing built on this need to invest continually into the belief of the system, to continue to build confidence in the system, even if the substance on which they were building confidence wasn't there. So much of it related to confidence, and increasing that confidence and building that confidence. And these few prophets of doom who went around saying this is not real, it's not going to last, these things that we're trading on, the more we pursue it, the worse it'll get. And they proved to be, of course, absolutely right. All of that as an introduction to say, when I read Revelation 13, and read it again, as I say, with me reading partners, there's a bunch of commentaries that are worth reading in this for Revelation, and I wouldn't dare speak to Revelation without reading commentaries. We get this triumvirate, this axis of evil. We've got the dragon. We've got, from beginning of Revelation 13, the beast that comes from the sea, which is, a horrifying sounding creature, many heads and horns and things. And now the beast from the earth, which by contrast looks kind of pleasant. Reminds me, in fact, of the image of Jesus, a lamb with two horns, not a dangerous sounding creature. And that, of course, is part of the deceit here. Its appearances are meant to lower our defences and make us feel warm toward it, and to not expect threat. If it doesn't appear threatening, then maybe it's not threatening. That's kind of the intent here. But this second beast, this one that's from the earth, serves the beast from the sea, which serves the dragon. So the whole thing, kind of, though it appears benign, it's really not. Its whole intent, as the whole thing of this whole cabal of evil is to destroy the earth and destroy the humans, and destroy as much as it can, because it's anti-God, and God is creator, so they've got to be destroyer, and so on and so forth. God is about truth, and so they've got to be about lies. Well, the connection to this Michael Lewis thing, this Big Short and the global financial crisis, is that the target, or the means by which pressure is placed on earth, is economic. It's the marketplace. This is the mark of the beast place. This is the number of the beast place. This is where we find that particular reference. And the threat is, if you do not bow to the beast, then you will not be able to trade. And of course, if you can't trade, you can't live. such a practical reality, such an obvious leveraging point. Because if you're in business and you can't do business, your business folds. You can't make money. You can't sustain your family. Life revolves around our economy now. Life revolves around the marketplace. It kind of always has. Even if you're a farmer and you can make food, there's things that you can't make yourself, and you needed to trade. So trading is such a big part of what it is to be a part of a civilization, and has been for so long. We can't imagine a life in a world without trading. So the beast has positioned itself as owning that world, as causing all of us to have to go through it in order to trade. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out. One is, first of all, what does 666 mean? Was one person put it, 6 is the number of man, as opposed, and 7 is the number of for God. 666 is to say, and 6 being less than 7, it's always not quite there. We are lower than God. We are never going to be God. And 666 is to say, our very best attempt as humans to do is the very best we can, which of course, with our ingenuity and our natural powers, well, the ones that we granted by God anyway, mean that we can accomplish a great deal. But we're never, no matter how many 6s you put in a row, you're never going to get to 7. And 777, of course, is to say, God is always greater. God is always above. That's one way to sort of think about it, and that's one idea that's been put out there, and I think is worth thinking about as anything else. Certainly, I think when it comes to communication, for instance, we keep trying to improve communication as if communication needed to be improved. Just sit in a room with a friend and spend some time with them. So much better than Zoom. So much better than this. So much better than any other system that we've got in place. So much better than using a phone as an intermediary. Our relationships have always been better when we've had them in person as God designed it, rather than these impersonal means that we've created as improvements on God's design. 666, we're never quite there. We are always doing less than what God has already created. So anyway, that's one way to think about it. A really old tradition as well around 666 is if you take the name Nero. So Emperor Nero was probably the worst Roman emperor as far as the Christians were concerned. You take his name, you take the letters of his name, you convert them to Hebrew letters, and Hebrew letters are assigned a numeric value. So you add them all up and you get 666. So that's often been considered as well as one of the points that's been made in this, to say, the beast that we're talking about, it's Nero and all of those who serve Nero, because he is the great agent on earth doing the greatest damage to the saints and to God's earth. This Roman imperial sort of system, of which Nero is the current figurehead, is the system being manipulated and used by the dragon and the beasts are Nero and his cohort that support the whole imperial system. They are it on earth at this point. So of course they're not around now, and I have to make this connection to today. We don't have Emperor Nero. Who do we have now? Well, we'll get there. And the other part of it, of course, is the mark of the beast, what we need in order to trade. And there's, again, speculation about that. Is it going to be a microchip? Has it already happened? Is it the microchip we have on our cards? Would it be some sort of tattoo? A lot of speculation on that. But what I want to suggest in a way is, even if that sort of stuff does happen, in a sense, we're already in a position, and just as they were in Roman days, we're already in a position where we have to deal with the beast if we're going to deal with trade. We do. For the people reading Revelation in the original day, it was the imperial cult. They were people who served the imperial cult, or who, if you were in a city and the city governor decided to build a big imperial cult temple, or a big temple for the imperial cult, then that city would receive greater favor from the emperor, and of course the governor particularly. So there was a lot of benefit from being the most fervent worshipper of the imperial cult. And the imperial cult simply is to say, and it was a real thing, and it was this idea that the emperors and that imperial system had divine right, and when emperors died, they ascended to the heavens and joined the gods. They were seen as being having this divinity to them, and their children, their sons, were sons of God, and so on. So and there were temples and priests and the whole shebang. It was a big thing. Anyway, so if you served and gave fealty to it and were the most fervent, you received the greatest benefit. So for them, the beast and the way the whole thing worked was, if you served Rome and were the most sycophantic Roman citizen that there was, and you loved the Roman governors and the so on and so forth, then you got the greatest benefit from it. Even though these were the same people who were incredibly corrupt, who were crushing people left, right, and centre, who had no regard for anyone less than them to any degree. They were wicked. They were wicked. So that was then. But what about today? Well, today it's not quite the same. We don't have the same cult, or the same imperial cult anyway. But we definitely do still have this force in our world called the economy, called capitalism. And the global financial crisis was global because there may not be a one world government, but there's definitely a one world economy. And any economy that really suffers, any significant economy that suffers, it's going to affect us all, and it did. So we're already sort of mixed in it. And as I said, while there might not be some kind of physical manifestation of a mark of the beast, the spirit of the mark of the beast, if you like, the intent is that we come to see the economy and capitalism as being of so great importance that anything can be sacrificed to sustain it. And did we see that? We did see that in the global financial crisis. We saw that in several ways, and again, this is spelled out quite neatly in The Big Short. One of them is that despite the fact that really intelligent people and people who sat at the very top of these significant institutions and oversaw the whole mess, only one man was brought before the courts and and sent to jail for having a role in it. One person of the how many people were involved in this thing and kept it going and were at the top of it, and he wasn't even a leader, he wasn't even a chief executive, he wasn't even a big shot. He was a pawn thrown to the wolves, sacrificed as the scapegoat for the whole thing. But one person brought to justice in this whole thing. So, and these people, of course, they didn't lose money like we lose money. If I were to invest in a business and I lose it all. When you're uber rich, you lose a fortune, you've got many fortunes to fall back on. And these CEOs didn't lose, they might have lost their job, but they didn't lose their fortunes. They didn't lose their material wealth. They had protected it because the wealthy know how to protect wealth. They know how to protect their own, they know how to protect one another and themselves. But trillions were lost. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes and their jobs and their businesses. The economies reeled from what went on. And what happened? Well, not only were common taxpayers' monies wiped off the ledger and never to be seen again, despite the fact that the people who were responsible for it walked away with still many millions and billions in their own bank accounts. Instead of them being told to pay money back into the bank and to get the system back and running and to fuel it, no, because we can't afford to make enemies of these people. The government was forced to step in. Governments were forced to step in with massive monetary investment, injections of funds into this broken, dying system to get it back to life again. Otherwise, we would all suffer greater. So, normal taxpayers lost their investment funds, and then they saw their taxpayer funds, their hard-earned, hard-paid across taxpayer funds. And of course, again, you know that the uber-rich don't pay taxes to anywhere near the degree we do. Well, our taxes went back in to support that same system and to get it up and running so that the uber-rich can carry on untouched with their games. And finally, the last kind of straw in this whole thing was the recognition that despite this lesson, despite the fact that a book like The Big Short could be written, then could be recognized for its value, be turned into a critically acclaimed movie, win an Academy Award for Best sort of Adaptation of a Screenplay, and be nominated for Best Movie of the Year. Despite that, did we learn any lessons? No. The same conditions that existed that led to the global financial crisis are in play still today. Nothing has materially changed, and we're probably heading for another very similar event. I have no insight into that. Don't read me as if I know anything about this. But if those conditions exist still today, then the consequences, the outcome has got to be a sure thing. If we're going to sow the same way, we're going to reap the same reward. So the mark of the beast might not be something that we wear under our skin or on our skin, but we're probably all marked by the beast in the sense that we find it very hard to not trust capitalism, to not trust that system. We find it. We might rail against the fact that these things happen, but we can't imagine a world without that system. We couldn't imagine a world without the banking systems in place. If they collapsed, we would be in a complete freefall of fear. We are marked by the beast in the sense that we are so enmeshed in our economies that we cannot imagine life without it, and therefore even if we were aggrieved by it, we could see no other option than the governments pouring our money into these systems that had already stolen our money in the first place. So we're kind of mixed up in this already, and I guess what it is, and perhaps in a final word, is a challenge and a reminder to us that whatever happens, the economy is not something that we should give our integrity to. That the system and the way that Michael Lewis told the story so brilliantly is that just because lots of people are doing it, that doesn't mean that you should. Just because the rating agencies are saying it's okay and the so-called powers that be, who are our authorizers and overseers, say it's okay, it doesn't mean it is. It could be that they're all deceived and are deceiving, and we need to maintain our integrity and know what is right and true and good. Just because you can make money a certain way doesn't mean that you should. Making money is not reason enough to do something. There needs to be another source for our integrity and for our morality. And of course that can only come from God. It's not going to come from the world around us, because we are duped, and so easily duped. All it took was pulling the strings of fear, pulling the strings of greed, pulling the strings of everyone's doing it, it's okay. Surely if everyone's doing it, it's not going to be a bad thing. So those are my thoughts. Maybe you'll see the mark of the beast around you more often, maybe the spirit of the beast, and think about how we might resist that. I suspect that takes a community and a community conversation, and not sitting alone in your room thinking, well, there's something I can do about that. No, probably not. You and I on our own, probably we can't. But maybe communities can find ways to resist the forces of an economy and capitalistic thinking, which blinds us to integrity and to morality. Final word. I'm not against marketing. I'm not against the marketplace. I'm not against trading. I'm just against getting caught up in the spirit of it and this belief or hope that it holds our joy and our security and our future in its hands. It doesn't. All right, that's enough. See you again sometime. God bless.